me and my colleague Jonas, who's my business partner, when we started as SDRs at our first company, Solvemate, we were first-time SDRs and had no experience. We basically did around 10 coachings in 12 months. But we always saw that each coaching that we did only gave us 10 to 20% of the things that were relevant for us. Unfortunately, there was no such thing as Hyrisers before when we started as SDR that would have given us the coaching of the principles. So we had to learn everything by doing so many different things and testing so many different things. And we did this very successfully multiple years in different companies. And then we found out that we want to create something where we work for 3 to 6 months with people and kind of test with them systematically through using different methodologies to help them get to the point where they know the exact and perfect approach that fits their product, their target group, and their personalities as sellers. Now, when it comes to the topic of productivity, just a quick story there. I remember when we were at Solvemate, it took us 3 quarters to crack our messaging, to get to the point where we know exactly what to imagine. 3 quarters. In my first quarter at Solvemate, I had 1 SQL. Like I hit 1 from 12, which is a very bad, and then it was going up and up. And then after 3 quarters was the first time where we felt like we knew what we had to do. And in that quarter, I reached around 75% of my goal. The quarter after it, I reached 125% of my goal, but I was doing the exact same thing. The only difference was that in that quarter, I learned how to manage my time. Mm-hmm. No joke. Me learning how to be very, very, very smart with my time and my focus gave me 40% better results in 1 quarter. So just for you guys to see, like this has a lot of leverage on your results, and it's gonna take you from doing this much volume in a time to doing 2 times more at the same time, and that's how your results are gonna go. So this really has a leverage on what you're gonna do, and the things that I'm gonna show you today are things that I do on a daily basis. And yeah, let's get right to it.
And Bisho, one thing for context, I'm sorry, I missed saying that. The people you're going to have here, the range of experience is from hasn't started the training yet, is eager to get started, comes from completely different background, all the way to right in the middle of the program, to finish the program, to now looking to start a job or maybe already in a job.
Yeah.
In case there are abbreviations, some may need some explaining for the ones that are completely new to it.
Got it. So when it comes to abbreviations, good that you tell me that. When it comes to the concepts that we're going to speak today, they're going to help you whether you want to be in sales, marketing, operations, whatever you want to do in your life. The things that we're going to learn today, you can apply them to anything. Even in the future, if you actually become an AE or you become a team lead or whatever, if you actually grow in a company, you can use the exact same principles that you were going to use today. So this is something you can take with you wherever you want to go. But good point with the abbreviations. Anything sales related, I will make sure to explain it a little bit deeper. Cool. So let's get right into it. Let me share my screen. I think you guys can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Yes. So let's look at the agenda real quickly. The first thing we're going to talk about is prioritization. Then we're going to talk about something called slicing and dicing. Then we're going to talk about deep work. We're going to talk about using the calendar, how to effectively use the calendar. And then we're going to talk about something, how to take effective breaks. You're going to notice something, that everything we're going to talk about today are things that you are doing outside of the time where you're actually executing. So everything that we're going to talk about today is how to prepare. It's all in the preparation part of things, not in how you execute things. Because when you're preparing right, the execution becomes easy. So just for you, you're going to notice a pattern that everything we're going to do is not while we're cold calling, not while we're writing emails, not while we're sending emails on LinkedIn. It all happens before or after. So now that you know what the topics are, I need you to please take 1 minute and answer the following question. What would you like to get out of this session? I just want to hear your thoughts and see where you guys at. Just take 1 minute, think about it, and write it in the chat.
Great.
Exactly. Go back so you see what the topics are about. More efficiency throughout the day, how to effectively focus. Awesome. We're going to talk about that. Principles I use to know when to take breaks and why. Great point. Oh, yes. Get impulse on how to work more productively in general, like deep work, for sure. Advice that I can implement fast. You will get it. Understand, even though everyone has the same amount of time, some manage to achieve more. Amazing point. Yes, we're going to talk about all of these things. Perfect. Really, really happy. These are exactly the things we're going to talk about today. I see very good things here. What not to do.
Good point.
Very good point. We're gonna talk about everything that you guys touch on. Then let's get right to it. So the first thing we want to talk about is prioritization. And just what you said, what not to do. Common mistakes among sales reps that I see time after time after time after time. First thing is they don't start their day by planning their day. They don't plan time, half an hour in the morning to just plan the day. They just jump right into things and start executing. They see all tasks as equal. And then they end up spending too much time on less important tasks. And they don't start their day with their most important task. Now, all of these are gonna cost you a lot of energy because I'm gonna get right into it, but just to lighten up a little bit. This is what people do. You finish prioritization. Tell me more about how everything being a top priority. People do this all the time. They just put everything in the same bucket and see everything as the same. And what's on my to-do list today? All right, everything. You know, so these are huge mistakes. Now, what happens here is there is no such thing as task equality. It does not exist. You know, because everybody, like, I hope you guys know the Pareto principle. 20% of your activities are going to get you 80% of your results. So when you look at that, and then you know that you only have a certain amount of energy every day, but you also know that the energy isn't equally distributed along the day. Everybody knows that we have more energy in the morning and less energy throughout the day. So when we know this, we want to make sure that these 20% that are going to get us most of the results are being taken care of first thing in the morning. Game changer. A lot of people just be like, you know what? I'm just going to start doing the small things in the morning, get them out of the way, and I'm going to get to the important task later. This is what I see a lot of people doing. And it's a huge mistake because it just takes so much energy from the day. So here you have to be very aware of what your priorities are and where you invest your energy. So the question is, how do I do it? No? But before you start planning your time, you have to plan your focus. Because this is something that I learned from a mentor. He said, where your attention goes, your energy flows. And we only have limited energy in the day. So before we want to look at the calendar, we want to ask ourselves, where do I want to put my focus on? What are the things that are very, very important that if I put my focus on first thing in the morning, they're going to get me 80% of the results. This has proven to work time after time after time. People wrote a lot of books about this way of working. So the question is, how do I do it actively? And the first thing you want to do is you want to start your day by writing all your tasks down. I do this every single morning. Every morning I sit down, even though I know the things by heart and they're in the back of my mind. I sit down and I write a list of everything that I have to do. Everything, even if the list includes things like, I don't know, do my taxes, even I write these things. Write my taxes, reply to this email, send this email to this government office. I write everything that I have to do just so it's called like a brain dump. You just dump everything off your brain on a piece of paper. Super powerful. Second thing I do is every day I ask myself, okay, what one activity, if done effectively, will get me most of my results? I make sure it's crystal clear. What is the one activity that's going to get me most of my results? And then I put my tasks in order. Obviously, then I ask myself, okay, what is the second most important activity? What is the third most important activity? And I put my tasks in order of importance. You see, this is not a to-do list, guys. This is not a to-do list. This is a focus management list. This is a list that's going to show me what the important things are. And then the interesting thing is that the less tasks you have in one day, the better.
Bisho, we have one question coming up that as you're drinking water.
Sure.
49176,
Yeah,
whoever you are.
Roman.
Roman, go for it.
Yeah. My question is, how do you know which task is the one effectively task? So is it, for example, like if is it, for example, like one task, like one closing, or is it like one task like cold calling? What is it? If you can explain it a little more?
That's a great question. So I'm going to say here in the context of being an SDR, right? So now I'm not going to take it from my context because I have to coach and I have to close deals. So I'm going to take it in your context. When I was an SDR, for me, the most important task was to cold call at a certain point. Before I used to do cold calls, my most important task was email. We used to do a lot of email prospecting before the pandemic. It was very successful. And my most important task was to enroll people. Because I knew my goal, because if I want to find out, okay, how do I know which is the most important task? I have to ask myself, okay, what is my actual goal? And your goal is, as SDR, is to book meetings and create SQLs. And the thing that's going to get you the meeting is not working on some project giving to you by your HR. That's not going to get you the meetings. This is what I see a lot of SDRs doing. They end up spending a lot of time on things that are not prospecting activities. And then when they get to prospecting activities, they don't have a lot of energy to do it. So of course, if you're going to be doing prospecting, the most important task is going to be email prospecting. It's going to be cold call. It's going to be LinkedIn prospecting. So you want to do that at the beginning where you have a lot of energy, where you have a lot of creativity, that morning, like fresh morning energy. You want to use that because that's what's going to help you do 2 times more in the most important task at the same time.
Okay.
So you think, Bisho, so translating that,
yes,
it's
SQL.
called, yeah.
Yeah, SQL is a sales qualified lead. This is the way that you're going to be getting your commission when you're going to be an SDR, basically, is when you book a meeting, does that meeting become qualified? Is this a prospect that we can sell to? Once that is identified, you earn your money. And you only earn your money when you book meetings. So obviously the most important task is going to be either cold calling, doing emails, or LinkedIn, depending on what channel you decide to use or what channel has been working for your team. Right? There's also something like if you're not 100% sure, always go and ask a high performer in your team. What is the task that's getting you most of your results? And you're going to get a lot of interesting insights. If you don't have a high performer in your team and you're the first one, then you're going to need to test. You're going to be to systematically test things out and see, okay, what is the most? But then your most important task would be, okay, first of all, find out what do I want to do today. That's going to be what do I want to test, and then take it from there. So this is very important. The less tasks you have in one day, the better, because it's more effective to work longer on a single task than to work on lots of tasks in one day. Just to give you an example, when I still do this to this day, I use Monday all the day. I don't take, for example, I don't put customer calls on Monday. I rarely do, but sometimes I have to. For example, next week, my Monday next week, unfortunately, has 3 meetings, but I usually create my contacts for the whole week on Monday. So I take the Monday, all the Monday, and I choose who are the people I want to be contacting this week. So I don't have to do it in the rest of the week. The rest of the week, I can like cold call the whole day, or I can email prospect the whole day. So the less tasks you can have in one day, the better, because then you will be able to catch flow faster and get things done way faster. So do you have questions to prioritization before we switch to the next one? And by the way, they are all going to be connected with each other. So we're going to be connecting the dots.
So just to summarize from what I understood, Bisho, that so you say from an SDR perspective, key to you, and hence what you should do in the morning is outreach, right? So it's cold calling or emailing or social prospecting, aka LinkedIn.
Yes, 100%.
Right.
I like every successful SDR I see are SDRs that prospect first thing in the morning.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Amen.
But this is again like, because these SDRs, they take the Monday and they prepare the contacts for the whole week.
Mm-hmm.
So they spend 6 hours on Monday only either creating lists or getting lists from marketing and kind of going through the lists and uploading them to the CRM system. So they prepare their prospecting on Monday, and they prospect only 4 days, but get 2 times more results because they have way more flow because they are cold calling the whole day. So they catch momentum, and high performance comes from energy, and energy comes from momentum.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Cool.
One question actually, do you also prioritize your private life, or do you try to keep it low there?
Going to the meat and bones, Marius. That's a great question. Very intimate.
My private life is outside of work, is outside of my work time. Yeah, obviously, I prioritize my morning routine. That's my first part of my private life. Is I have a very, very thorough morning routine of 3 hours, and then in the afternoon, then I see if I like my private life is basically outside of 9 to 7, 9 to 8, everything outside of that. But yeah, then when I'm there, I don't do anything work related. Then it's prioritized. But again, this is the thing with like kind of knowing where the focus is and what you need to do in which hours, right?
Understand.
Yeah. So now we're going to talk about something very interesting called slicing and dicing. I'm going to write a book. It's called, I don't know if you know it, called Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. And this is where I learned this, slicing and dicing. And this is one of the best and most comprehensible books about time management and focus management. Highly recommendable, highly recommended. Amazing book. You can read this literally in one weekend, but it is so to the point. And he speaks about slicing and dicing. So basically, what kills productivity when executing? Now we're talking you're executing. What kills productivity is going back to planning and ask yourself, what do I do now? This just kills your productivity because it kills your energy flow. It kills your momentum when you're going from being in a state of mind where you're executing and getting things done to going back and asking, oh, what do I have to do now? And this constant switching between execution and planning is deadly, and it just kills your productivity. So the way you do it is, first of all, you want to avoid jumping back and forth between execution and planning. You're welcome, Linda. And the way you do it is you look at the task before you start working on it. And this is something that I do again in the morning. You look at the task before you start working on it or before you start your day, and you break it down into smaller tasks on a piece of paper. I'm going to give you an example in a second. The smaller, the better. And then you want to start with the first step and do one step at a time. So why is this very amazing? Or I'm going to give you an example first. For example, email prospecting. Right? Let's say the task is email prospecting. How do I slice and dice a task like this? First thing I have to do is I have to create a list of contacts that I want to enroll. Even if I prepare them on Monday, I still need to look in the morning and be like, okay, I'm enrolling these 20 people today. So this is the first kind of piece of the cake. Second one is I want to upload them to the CRM system. In the case that they are not in the CRM system, I'm just making it here very thorough. And then I want to enroll the contacts. I want to put them, for example, when I say enroll contacts, I mean, I created a sequence that has multiple emails on my CRM system. And I take a contact and I enroll them in the sequence, and then the contact starts receiving all these emails automatically. So I went and I enrolled the contacts. Now, what I like to do is I like to personalize the first email to each contact, because successful email marketing, in my opinion, should be personalized or hyper-personalized at least. So you see, I went from saying I want to do email prospecting to 4 different tasks. But this on a piece of paper makes my life easier, because I know exactly what I need to do. I look at the paper and I keep moving. I look at the paper and I keep moving. I don't have to go back and think, I'm like, okay, I created the list. Now, what do I have to do? I have to upload it to CRM. Okay, upload it to CRM. Okay, now I will need to enroll. These split seconds of thinking is going to cut your flow. And you want to take anything out that ruins flow. You want to take anything out that ruins momentum. Is this clear? Do you see how you can slice and dice a task, or does somebody want to say a task that we can slice and dice now together?
I would say a task. If it's all right.
Huh? Excuse me?
I would say a task.
Tell me.
Cold call.
Perfect. I'm gonna write it down. I'm gonna write cold calls. Okay. So the first thing that I want to do here, if I want to do cold calls, the first thing I want to do here is I want to make sure that I have contacts. So the first thing I would do, create contacts. Now this depends on, let's say, okay, question to you. Did you create all the contacts on Monday?
Yeah.
All right. So the first thing I want to do is I want to choose contacts for the day. This is the first thing. The second thing I want to do is I want to choose the time I want to call. Let's say I'm going to call directly, choose time. Let's say this is my first time. I know I'm going to call now. And then the third thing I would do is I would start calling. But while I'm calling, this is then the task of calling. I would slice it and dice it in, look at LinkedIn profile and then call. Because every time I call someone, I first look at their LinkedIn profile, every time. You know? So now I slice it down from 1 task to 4 tasks. And this makes it basically helps me think less. This is what I want to do. You know, I don't want to think a lot about what I have to do.
Mm-hmm.
When I write it down, I'm just like, bam, bam. Even if it's gonna give me 2 minutes more work, but 2 minutes on 1 month is, I don't know, 10, that's 40 minutes. That's 20 dials. That's potentially 2 meetings more. Like you see, like it's substantial on one day. It's 2-3 minutes. But if you add them up on the whole month, we're talking 1 or 2 meetings more. Only because I took the time in the morning and I sliced and diced the task.
Mm-hmm.
Super powerful. Yes, Linda?
Yeah, I have a question, but doesn't it become, I mean, all of these things that you're explaining to us are things that are more relevant to us that are new to the job and don't really have a routine. But with time, don't the slicing, dicings of tasks become a routine and you automatically have it put in place,
100%.
right?
100%.
Okay.
100%. And I'm going to show you in a second how my calendar looks like. And I was going to explain this point and tell you, hey, but look, I have a routine. I know already because I've been doing the same thing for the last 6-7 months.
Okay.
So it's way easier for me to plan. But at the beginning, this is where you, like now I need 15 minutes in the morning to plan my day. When I started as an SDR coach, I needed 30 minutes every day. But then just like you said, with time, I started understanding more about things that keep coming back the whole time, and they keep coming back at the same times. So now I work with recurring events on my calendar. I'm going to show you in a second how that looks. But you were 100% right. With the time, you're going to get even more efficient with planning, which is the goal.
Okay.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
And Bisho, what stands out to me, what you say about that is you want to achieve a status of flow, right? A moment where you add a task and you completely add it. And I think for the ones that have completed the program, one great example is how you go about cold calling, to pick that up. And when you have a blocker, right? You block time on your calendar for cold calling. When that blocker starts, you don't start generating leads. You do that before, right? We say it the night before, or you say on a Monday, you make your leads ready to call. So we refer to them ready to calls or ready to goes, where you have a list of 20, 30 leads to call. And when your cold calling blocker kicks in, you literally just dial, right? 100%. You may have LinkedIn open, but as soon as you have to do additional research, you get out of the flow and you get 5 calls done in an hour versus maybe 15 or 20, whatever. Yeah?
Exactly. And I'm going to talk about in a second about how to get into flow and how to stay into flow. Because because for me, flow and energy is what makes and breaks high performance. So we're going to talk about that. But yeah, that's a very important point. Cool. So why is this important? Just like I said, it makes it easier to stay in a flow state because you know exactly what you need to do. Gives you a clarity on what you're doing, better clarity on what you're doing. And the most important thing, the most fun thing for me is it increases motivation. I don't know why, but there's this thing about putting like a check mark next to a task that is just incredibly satisfying and makes me so happy. When I have all the tasks,
I guess dopamine.
It is. It's a small dopamine kick, 100%, you know, but it's sustainable, you know, because I just keep doing this the whole time. And there's this like, oh, nice. Oh, nice. So it increases my motivation. It really makes me feel good about going through tasks. Cool. Now we're going to talk about potentially my favorite topic, is deep work. So I want to explain something to you guys first, and this is real. An airplane uses 30% of its fuel only to take off. So when an airplane leaves an airport, it needs 30% to get to that altitude where you can take your seatbelt off and where the assistants start getting you the food and the plane goes on autopilot. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because for us to get into that flow state, you guys know this when you're working and you get into this tunnel vision and you're super focused and everything else is kind of muted. Everybody's experienced this before. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I didn't know is that for me to get into that state, my body uses a lot of energy. So every time, it's almost like an airplane. Every time I want to go into flow state, I want to get to that altitude, I use a lot of energy to get to that altitude. But once I'm there, and this is what I say, the mental state of deep work, once I get to that part, I feel focused, my creativity goes up, I feel happier, and I get things done faster. Now, switching tasks and going back to planning, and what I see like SDRs do the whole time is they're prospecting and doing cold calls. And then a prospect, for example, writes them an email and they leave everything they're doing to write the email back to the prospect. Don't do that. You know what? The best thing is to even turn off the notification because that's going to get you out of your deep work state. And you're going to lose so much energy to go write that email and then to go back to cold calls. And then you end up, just like Dominic said, you end up doing 5 calls in 1 hour instead of doing 30 calls in 1 hour because of switching tasks. So what do you want to do is, and this is something I do, I have recurring deep work blocks. And when I'm doing these deep work blocks, obviously in the morning, now we're adding up, right? In the morning, I prioritized, I sliced and diced my tasks. And then I have a deep work block. I'm going to show you in a second how that looks like on my calendar. I turn off all notifications, everything, especially when I'm cold calling. I turn off all notifications. I say no to people. Religiously say no to people when you are doing deep work. Because it's people, especially if you're going to be in an office, like for me saying no to people is people like for example, even my colleague wants something from me. I tell them, hey, no, sorry, I can't talk right now. I'm really focused because I know that it can wait half an hour. It's not going to break it or make it. Even if a prospect writes me an email, I'm not going to reply them directly because how much time do prospects take to reply to us? It takes them multiple hours to write us back. Why should I write back in 5 minutes? Doesn't make sense. Okay. And another thing I do is obviously execute the most important task at that time. And the habit is, this is an action step, and I do this every Monday, is I have a 15-minute recurring block in my calendar where I plan my deep work blocks for the next week. I'm going to show you in a second how that looks like exactly. But this is, again, what I see a lot of people don't doing is I have a lot of time that I used to, like I plan a lot of time for planning. I have time where it's planned. I have blocks on my calendar that say plan. And a lot of people, I plan time to plan. It's going to take so much pressure off your day. So, any questions to deep work before we start connecting the dots? Now we're going to start connecting the dots. Cool, let's move. So now how to effectively use your calendar. it's really no magic formula. Like until now, we prioritize the tasks in the morning, we sliced and diced them, and we identified our deep work blocks. Now we have to put everything together. And the goal is to take those upcoming important tasks and put them into deep work blocks. Again, I'm going to show you in a second how that means, what that means. Again, the most important task always goes into the first deep work block and so on. But before you do that, there's one very important thing, which is, I have a question to you guys. Imagine you're a car and you're driving on a German highway on the left, 240 kilometers per hour. What is the most important part of the car in that moment? What do you guys think?
Keeping it line.
Okay, so the steering wheel. You mean? Okay.
Yeah, so pretty much don't wiggle and jiggle.
Okay. What do you guys think?
Watch the traffic.
That's a German answer.
What was that, Linda?
I said the brakes should work.
Yes. Thank you. Brakes. The most important thing is the first thing you plan are your brakes. One time my mentor told me, plan your brakes or they will break you. It's the most important thing. I'm going to show you in a second how that looks like. So planning your brakes first, that's going to add structure to your day. It's going to make sure you have energy throughout the day. And it's going to give you a healthy feeling of urgency because you know, okay, I have a break in 30 minutes. I need to get shit done. And you have to hold yourself accountable. This is what I say. The most important thing when it comes to using a calendar is hold yourself accountable to your plan. So let me show you how, before we talk about breaks or how to take effective breaks, I'm going to show you how my calendar looks like. I'm going to show you two things. The first thing I'm going to show you is how my next Monday is going to look like. Now you see here, I have on Monday, because from what Linda said, is for me, Monday, 10 to 12 p.m. and 2:30 to 4 p.m. are deep work blocks. Every Monday, I have deep work blocks there pre-planned. Why is there a LinkedIn session here? Because this is my current priority right now is to build my LinkedIn, how do you call it? My LinkedIn presence. So every morning I have to post and interact with people and stuff like that. So this is my priority at the moment. So I have a recurring block for it every single day. You see LinkedIn session every single day. Now, what I do on the Sunday, what I'm going to do this Sunday is I'm going to come here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to look and I'm going to see like, wait, but there's no breaks here. So I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to put a break here. I'm going to put a break here. I'm doing this right now. Now I see here there's two meetings. Unfortunately, this has to go. This is out. And this is then how, then in the morning, I would still do the exact same thing because there's a deep work block here that I'm still not 100% sure what I'm going to do here. So I sit down in the morning and I write down, okay, now I have to do LinkedIn. It's probably going to be preparing contacts for the week, to be honest. It's probably going to be the same here, because I told you I'd rather work on 2 things in a day than work on 5 things in one day. Meetings don't count. So I'd rather do LinkedIn and preparing contacts for the week. Now, how does it look, for example, on a day like today, where basically in the morning, I had a deep work session and I wrote here, which I told you guys to do here, which is this basically. And this, I did this morning. I had this call at 11, which was a closing call. I had the CEO on the call. So my priority is to close deals right now in that day. So the first thing I had to do was prepare for the call. This was the most important thing to do for me today. Then I wanted to change something about the masterclass for today. Then I wanted to find some contacts for a specific list. And I wanted to send a message to Vlad. And I did all these things in 1.5 hours. But then in the morning, I planned my breaks. There's a break here. There's my lunch break. I had 2 hours of coaching. I had a break, and then I had 1 hour of cold call. Now I already had my contacts ready. So once it was 4 p.m., all I had to do was open my my tool that I use for calling and start dialing. And I booked 1 meeting today, so it worked. You know. Then I had a break, and then I was like, okay, I want to review the masterclass, and then the masterclass. And then here a small break, and then I'm going to reflect my day. So you see this, the difference, how it went from being a little bit unorganized in the beginning with those recurring events to me knowing, okay, there's a deep work block and there's a deep work block. Now, this is a tip I'm going to give you guys. If you ever have a day where you have a lot of meetings and you can't cold call all the day and you have to choose when to cold call, I advise you to cold call from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. because you're going to have the highest connection rates in that time. This is the time where most people answer the phone. If you can cold call all the day, go for it, because you'll never know. But if you have a limited amount of time that you can prospect at in a certain day because you have meetings or you have something to do or you still need to create contacts, cold call from 4 to 6 p.m. because you're going to get the highest results. It's going to be most of the people are going to pick up. But if you can, this is important for me because I have to take customer calls and I have to coach. So I don't have that much time. I can't cold call. I wish I can cold call all the day, but this is what I was doing in September. In September, my first deep work would be cold calls because I didn't have the same pipeline as today. I didn't have the same amount of clients that I have today, but now I have to limit it. So I have to only cold call. I can only cold call. You see here, I always have 4 to 6 p.m. is my cold call block. But again, this is to the point that Linda said. With time, I found out what works for me, how my routine looks like, and I started understanding, okay, what goes where. Any questions?
What's your reflection looks like? So that's one of my, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So what do you want to know about it?
So you just said over time you find out what works and what doesn't. Obviously, you will always have like a natural but there also it has to be like a reflection part of your productivity, right?
Okay, this is I'm just gonna give you guys, this is my own template. I'm gonna share it with you in the chat. You can just copy paste it and start using it if you want. Just go to it, copy paste it. So this is how I do my daily reflection. This is now we're talking about high performance habits, but we have some time, so it's fine. Every day I ask myself, what was good? What would I have done differently? What did I learn? What am I thankful for? And what are my goals tomorrow? I do this every single night.
Sounds really good.
You know, and then I do it for the week, and then I do it for the month, and I do it for the quarter, and I do it for the half a year, and I do it for the whole year at the end of the year. And I've been using this template for years now, and it changed everything for me. So now we're talking high performance habits, but this is a gift from me to you guys since you asked.
Just one more. Sorry.
And having the discipline, right, to do that, Bisho, to actually live that every day, in and out, in and out. I mean, that's the beauty with routines, right? Routines become powerful if you really respect them. But if you really do that every day or almost every day, then respect. I think that's a great skill to have, really.
Yeah, one of my mentors one time said, freedom comes from discipline. It's not the other way around. People think freedom comes from doing whatever you want, but doing whatever you want actually ends up with you burning out. You know, a lot of times, you know, most people who burn out just do a lot of things at the same time. But discipline creates freedom and not the other way around.
One more question, if I may.
Always.
Did you ever hear of time sector, the productivity system?
No.
It reminds me a little bit of it. I don't want to get too deep or sell it to you. It's just something you may want to take a look at. It's pretty much GTD. Just instead of organizing your activities after a project, you organize your activity after one thing we all have in common: time. So this week folder, next week folder, this month folder.
Interesting.
I used it a little bit. That sounds really interesting.
I'm gonna take a look at it. That sounds interesting.
Cool. Could you put a link on or the name on the chat box, please?
Sure.
For us?
Because it really reminded me of a lot of like similarities to what you do, so that I just came to mind.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna look at it. It would be awesome if you can write something about it in the chat, and then the others can also look at it. Time sector by Cole Poulain. Write it down.
Beautiful.
Interesting.
Thanks, Marius.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you so much. So let's move so we can have some time for questions. So this is, I'll use the calendar. All right. So how to take effective breaks. Super important. as I told you, I really believe that, like, plan your breaks or they will break you. If you like, I see, like, and this is coming from a good heart, right? Like, people just want to work harder, but working too hard and not taking smart breaks. We're not saying here take breaks all the time. We're talking smart, calculated breaks. You know, it's going to make sure that you don't end up feeling just dead by the end of the day. When you take good breaks throughout the day, it's going to give you it's going to give you more energy throughout the day. And once it's 6 p.m., you're not going to feel like your world's going to collapse. This is how most people feel at the end of the day. They're like, oh, I just want to lay down on my couch and watch something and just die. You know, like, this is what happens, because a lot of people I see is just like, don't take effective breaks. And when they take breaks, this is the first point, is they go and they will look at something on their phone, or they talk to someone on the phone, or they reply to the messages. First thing you want to be aware of when you take breaks is no screens allowed. No screens allowed. I'm going to give you an example in a second of things that you can do, but your eyes need break from the screen, guys. Every an hour and a half, you need 15 minutes, no screen. Super, super important, very underestimated. Because unfortunately, we're living in a time where working very, very hard is being celebrated, but then everybody who burns out doesn't talk about it. It's just so controversial, like, just it's hypocritical in a way, you know? So no screens allowed. And you want to avoid speaking if you feel tired after a long task, especially cold calls. Imagine you just did an hour and a half of cold calls, and then you go and then you start talking to some people in the kitchen. Exactly, like, just exactly counterproductive. After my cold call session, I don't want to open my mouth. I want to shut up for half an hour, you know? I would give very short, if I was in the office, I would be giving a very short answer, but then I noticed that, like, okay, I actually had to communicate to people. And I started, and one time I wrote like a message in Slack. I'm like, guys, if I'm not answering when people talk to me, it's because I just did an hour and a half of cold calls and I really feel like shutting up. People understand that. People end up understanding that, but don't be open to communicating that you need a break and you need to shut up. I do this all the time. Drink a lot of water, super important. Like, these are just super simple stuff, but they add up. Drink a lot of water, as much as you can, especially in the breaks. Do breath work, super important. Like, breath work is very important. I have a question to you guys. This is real stuff. How much % of our lungs do you think we use on average? Of our lung capacity? What do you guys think?
10%.
Idea.
Yeah.
It's
So much more than
it's 30%.
Yep.
It's 30%. So imagine how much energy we're actually laying on the table or throwing in the garbage because we're not breathing deeply. So doing breath work, look at stuff like, for example, at Wim Hof. You know, it's very, very good. You know, 150%. You have 4.5 lungs, Sebastian, huh? So look at Wim Hof. Do some breath work where you learn how to breathe slowly and deeply, because it's going to fill your body with so much energy, and you're going to feel a difference in your whole life if you learn how to do breath work. Super powerful. And my favorite is go for a walk. This is probably my favorite way of taking a break, even if it's just 10 minutes around the block. I go out, I put my jacket on, and now I'm doing home office. I put my shoes on and I go for a walk around the block. It gives me so much energy. I get fresh air and I go back with a clear mind.
Quick question. Do you, when you go for a walk, do you have like a quiet area, or do you go for a walk in the city? Because I always feel like when you go around in the city, you hear, in Berlin at least, you hear at least 4 guys in a motorcycle or in a police cycle. I always get more tired.
Yeah. This is obviously like a very important thing. I also live in Berlin. So I know what you mean about Berlin. It's just a very, very loud city. So for me, around my area, I found a route where I run away from the big streets, basically. But sometimes you just can't avoid this, and I always combine these two. So I'm always taking very deep breaths while I'm walking, very slow deep breaths, and it's almost like I'm meditating while I'm walking. You know? And whatever happens, you just have to like be like, okay, don't worry, just breath. Like if anything annoys you, just take a deep breath and just don't allow it to get into you. But I know what you mean. Berlin is a tough place when it comes to noise. Very noisy city, 100%. And this is probably the most important thing, especially about these two, is you need to learn to be okay with not working throughout the day for a while. Like to be fully okay with taking yourself out of work and just taking time for yourself throughout the day. You know, a lot of people I see is they take breaks and they're anxious thinking about work while they're on breaks. And this is exactly why these things are things that help you kind of calm down your mind. But with time, it's going to give you a sense of kind of self-love, because you're going to feel like, okay, I have a lot of shit to do, but I'm allowing myself to go for a walk for 10 minutes, knowing that it's going to give me even more energy after. But being able to take this mental decision and say, okay, I'm going to stop working now, not because I finished what I did, but because now I planned a break and I'm going to hold myself accountable to my calendar. And it's totally fine that I'm not going to cold call for the next 15 minutes. Totally fine. And this is just, it builds like this confidence and feeling of security. With time, it really does. With time, every time you go for a break, you feel like, I know everything's going to be fine because I'm taking a break now. I know everything's going to be fine. So this also has a very deep psychological effect to it. If you hold yourself accountable and you take very good, well-planned breaks for periods of months, you're going to start feeling that your breaks give you a lot of motivation, a lot of feeling of security and happiness. Thank you for
Linda?
your attention. We have
Yeah.
10 minutes and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Yeah, I have a
Linda's
question.
first off.
Yeah, to the breaks, I totally agree with you that they're important, and that we should try to take ourselves outside of work, like mentally. But I personally have a really hard time doing that because I haven't started work yet.
Mhm.
But I can't think, like, even on weekends is I'm constantly thinking about how I can strategize better, which tools I can use. So my brain is like, but it's more like a fascination for the job itself. I'm like really in love with what I'm about to do. So I find it very hard to let go of that and say, okay, I'll have a break and not think about it, because it's just automatically constantly in my brain. So how do you switch that off?
That's a great question.
Love, and like for me right now, it really, it excites me, like literally excites me, like reading books, doing shitloads of workshops and courses, and I don't know, I'm like on fire. So when you said I should take myself out of it, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Can't
So,
do that. But
so let me ask you a question.
Mm,
These things that you are thinking about,
yeah,
do you have time planned to actually work on them?
yeah,
You do.
yeah.
So you know when you're going to be working on tools, you know where you're going to be working on reading new stuff.
Yep.
Okay, well then the only way for you to actually relax is to do breath work and do breath work.
Okay.
Because breath work, focusing on your breath for a longer period of time and breathing slowly relaxes your mind. I want to explain to you the psychology behind it, because yes, I know you're fascinated, but there's also like very fast and impulsive thinking. It comes from a survival mechanism that we developed through evolution.
Okay.
And breathing slowly, basically, so the opposite of breathing slowly is breathing shallow and fast. And this is what happens when we get nervous. We start breathing very shallow and very fast.
Mm,
So when we reverse engineer that physically and we breathe slowly and deeply, we signal to the brain that you don't need to be taking care of anything right now because everything is fine. You're not in danger. And once your brain understands that, it calms down. So I highly advise you, if you feel very fascinated and you're thinking all the time about it and you don't want to, then learn breath work and implement it into your daily routine. Like I do at least an hour and a half of breath work a day.
Wow. Okay.
But that's distributed. I do a lot in the morning, and then in my breaks, I always meditate 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there. And while I'm walking, I'm also doing breath work. And this just calms down my mind. You know, I have so many things that I need to worry about. Being freelance, it's incredible. Dom, you know how that feels. So many things that I need to think about. Like I'm like, you know how it is, Dom. Like we are 3 jobs in one job.
Yeah.
You know, being a freelance, you're 3 jobs in one job. And if it wasn't for breath work, I would have burned out long time ago. I'm serious, I would have burned out.
Okay.
So Linda, on that one, two things. I'm so happy we're recording that session. We have your statement on tape, and that should be an advertisement for becoming an SDR. So I think it's very obvious that you're burning for that. It's beautiful.
I am.
I think that makes us very, very happy. On another level, Linda, sharing with you what I do, because what Bisho said, I'm very guilty of many things, Bisho, that you today presented. I really am. We have a coach at Hyrisers too, where we as founders get a monthly session with a coach. The thing that I'm working on, I mean, it's very personal. I need to get better at prioritization. And the feedback I get from the team, for example, is I need to say no to things. Like my days are sometimes crazy. I have deep work, but I want to execute. Execution makes me very happy.
Mm.
And if you like that too, Linda, then what might help you, really set time aside for thinking, that you know when you have thoughts arising, I don't need to think about it. I have time set aside for thinking where I really do deep thinking. The rest of the time is for me. And so it doesn't need to worry you that you're inactive. You know, your thought comes from a feeling of, shit, I'm too inactive. I'm getting started. What could I do now to get better?
Exactly.
Set it aside for thinking time. Then you have set aside, you're accountable. And then when you have thoughts late at night, Linda, that come up, one measure I do, I leave my phone away, because I'm a little phone addicted to some degree. And I have a pen and a piece of paper in every single room next to my bed now and right next to our sofa. When thoughts are coming after 9 p.m., I write them down out of my head. I don't need my phone for that, no screen time. And then they're set aside and I'm at peace. I'm calm.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Dumping your thoughts on a piece of paper whenever they come up.
Yep.
You feel like it frees your space, your
Oh,
head space, right?
hell yeah. Absolutely.
You feel it in the
Absolutely.
moment, right? You feel it the moment you write it down, you feel like it leaves your mind.
Yep.
And this is why I asked you, Linda, if you plan those times, but this is kind of
I've implemented that. I write, I have this nice high-rise book because the one is completely full. So I do write everything down, and I've on my phone I have an app called Digital Wellbeing, and I have it on every day for at least 4 hours. So it shuts all of my distractions apps. It shuts it off, so I can just focus on what I need to focus on. And that's what I wanted to use when I'm doing, for instance, my cold calling, to have that on so that I have no notifications and I can just fully concentrate on the one task and nothing else. But my issue is that is all, I have that all in plan. It's just that even when everything is done and my day is finished for let's say at 6 p.m., my brain is still like,
Yeah.
I feel you. I mean, my recommendation is breath work.
okay.
Like
I'll try it out.
even at the end of the day, like I love doing breath work even before I sleep. It helps me dream better, to be honest. To meditate 15 minutes before I sleep, it helps me sleep better. I dream very vividly. But if you end your day with 15-20 minutes of meditation, it just calms your brain down. And try to implement it multiple times throughout the day. In the morning, first if you can meditate first thing in the morning, your whole day is going to change drastically.
Okay.
It's a game changer.
I don't want to sound like a beauty YouTuber, but literally, if nothing works, nothing in your brain work, it's legal. You can try out CBD oil. I tried it once after like a really busy day, and it's just physics, right? They bond to your CR1 receptors, and they just release so many endorphins or something, which calm you down. It's just chemistry.
I tried it, didn't work for me.
Then try inhalation. Maybe sublingual isn't working. If inhalation is not working, then I can't.
Lock yourself out. Then lock yourself out.
I'll try inhalation first.
We people from Berlin, we can tell you a lot about these things. Okay.
Yeah. Working out, that's the trick for me. Then interrupting a pattern. If that is deep work, deep breath, if that is meditation, if it's taking a walk, some sort of winding down routine for your workday. Okay, anything like that you can implement.
I even feel like going through my reflection routine at the end of the day calms me down a lot, because I just go through the day and I become just go rationally through the day, and I get out of execution and I go back into planning, and going back into planning relaxes me. So you can try these things. You can try, you just break the pattern, reflect, do some breath work, go for a walk, work out. Great stuff. Yeah, sure.
Do we have any more questions? Because again, be mindful of time. I think we have 7 p.m. now.
Yeah.
One quick one to close for the session. If there's nothing coming up while I'm saying that, I'm just looking around at the faces. I'm scrolling from right to left.
I actually have one.
Go for it.
I think it's quite deep, but maybe we can make it less deep. It's just, do you think you need like a overarching personal mission or anything to even start getting more productive? Because that's at least how I feel it. As long as I don't have like something I'm going for, I can be the most known technique guy in the world, but I'm still not productive.
Yeah. So I said at the beginning of the session, I said this multiple times, and I say this all the time. Welcome, Julian. Is that high performance comes from energy. And one way to get energy is to have a deep reason to why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Now, the things that we talked about today are going to make sure you have energy throughout the day. But the thing that you are talking about is something that's going to be like a fundament that you're going to build your house on in terms of your motivation and your, like, this is the productivity hacks are things to make sure you're kind of hitting your targets on a daily basis, and defining your why and your purpose and your mission are the things that are going to give you the energy on the long term. So just for you to have the difference, 100% super important. And this is something that we work on with our STRs. Define your why, define your why, define your why, define your why.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Super important. Yeah, super important.
Big Five for Life. Most of you will know the book. If not, John Strzelecki, it's very American.
Amazing.
Previous company, we gave it away to every employee. What are your big five for life, right? What are the big things you must have seen or experienced to call your life successful?
Looking at it right now.
Yep.
Yeah, amazing.
I only recommend.
Amazing book. Yeah.
Thanks, Tom.
Cool. So everyone, since we're 2 minutes over, Bisho, lovely, as you see by the interaction of the group. You see everyone again, highly relevant. You see that when you're in the program, you see it when you're on the job latest. Bisho, I think you said you're building your LinkedIn. Let's start here too. So everyone feel free to connect with you. I'm just inviting them on your behalf, sorry, tapping into each other's networks.
Yes, please.
We'll share that session with you afterwards. We'll do a 5-minute highlight video as well, Bisho, that we will share. And thanks a lot. Really, really much appreciated. Many gems of insights in there. Really mean that. And it was great seeing all of you. Wish you a beautiful rest of your day and a good, productive, healthy rest of your week.
Thank you guys so much for your attention. It was a pleasure to get to know all of you, and wish you guys all the best in your first SDR jobs. You're gonna rock it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Good night.